Hello and welcome everyone to the fourth session of the Coffee Retail Summit. My name is Pernilla Gard and I'm the Marketing Director of the Specialty Coffee Association. So it seems fitting that I'm hosting today's panel on big brands and small companies. I'm joined by three individuals from coffee companies whose brands we love, brands that reach beyond their immediate communities. First, we have Gabriella Matheny, Marketing Manager of Lykke Kaffegårdar in Sweden. She has previously worked for Johan Nyström Coffee Roasters as well as Omnipollo Beer Brewery. Next, Claudia Sans, who leads quality control for Cafes El Magnifico in Barcelona, Spain, roasting samples, tasting, selecting seasonal coffees to add to the coffee menu. Although she has watched and learned from her father and the team at Cafes El Magnifico since she was a little girl. And finally, we're joined by David Nigel Flynn, founder and CEO of Belleville in Paris, France. David has also played an integral role in the rise of French specialty coffee for nearly a decade. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm gonna let Claudia introduce herself a bit more. So welcome on, Claudia.
My name is Claudia Sans and I work in Cafes El Magnifico. I'm running the quality control here in Cafes El Magnifico. I'm the person in charge of coffee sourcing. And we have a little roastery here in Barcelona. My father starts buying specialty coffee in the 80s, and I'm the fourth generation.
Hi guys, I'm Gabriella Matheny. I work at Lykke Kaffegårdar. Kaffegårdar in Swedish means coffee farms, and that's what we're all about. We have our own farms where we set up role model farms, and then we try to influence the coffee industry for the better. My job is to take this big complex project and try to portray it as well as I can to our customers and anyone who wants to know.
Hi everyone, my name is David Flynn. I'm one of the founders of Belleville in Paris. So Belleville Brewery is all about bringing a distinctly French notion of artisanship and flavor to coffee. So that's what we do these days. I spend most of my time working on the coffee buying side and also on our marketing.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us here for this panel discussion. Very excited about it. It's definitely a topic that's very close to my heart and something that I worked with for quite a bit before I started with the SCA. Very excited to have you all three here. I thought that we would start with a question that has to do with the topic of this of the webinar, the name of the webinar, the panel discussion. And it has to do with like the small businesses and, do small businesses need brand strategies or is it more organic? And I'd love to hear some thoughts on that and how you and your companies sort of approach that. Maybe start with David.
Sure. I mean, I don't know, strategy is a big word. I guess the way we've always looked at it is you need a sort of core identity for your brand and your company. And then as long as you have that sort of core identity and philosophy, you can allow the way it grows to be really organic. So for us, we always knew we wanted to be very, very French, but with a sense of humor and really play on that artisanship. And then over the course of time, things have come up that have become integral parts of our brand, but it's been really organic. Our uniforms were once a joke gift for our first employee, but everyone liked them so much that they kind of became a de facto uniform, and now it's an integral part of our brand. So yeah, I think as long as you have a really clear idea in your head of what your company is going to be, visually and experientially, everything else can take some time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like your uniforms are obviously something that people think of when they think of your company, I think, at least if they maybe follow your social media accounts or, know you from that perspective. That's really funny to hear that was a gift at one point.
Yeah, it was I hesitate to tell the story anymore because it kind of cheapens it maybe a little bit, but it was a gift for our first employee because his parents were very worried because he had quit a good job to go work in what they saw as a factory. and they were very concerned. So we gave him a worker's jacket to go home with so he could really scare his parents. But everyone liked them so much that now we all wear them.
Yeah, that's funny. Gabriella, what are your and Lykke's thoughts on this? Because I know that you're a pretty new company as well, so it's interesting to hear from that perspective.
So we've existed a little bit over a year. We started last year, just about at the same time as the pandemic. When I was thinking about the question, I feel like what's most important, and I don't know if it's like brand guidelines or brand strategy that will get you there, but I think that you should be very true to your core or yourself, because there's just so much noise and there's so many small companies. And also, thanks to social media, whether you want to or not, everyone is sort of acting on a global scale, which for me means that if we do something that's uncompromising and very true to us and personal in a sense, that means that we will find our fans, and we will find people that can relate to us and have a feeling or something that connects them to our brand. And I talked to one of the people that we do design together with, and we were actually discussing if it's time for us now to set up like more of a traditional brand guideline. And she said, I mean, we can do that, and maybe you're ready for that now, or we discussed it, but we were both kind of like what David's on the topic of like, it has to grow organically. And you can make 5 versions of your logo, but once you start using it, this is the one that actually fits best with our, other stuff, or this format is better suited for how we work. So definitely as you grow, and definitely as you add more people to the company, you need that to get to be coherent, that everyone understands, okay, this is what we're doing, and being on the same page. But for us so far, it's mostly in our heads and in our DNA that we share together, I'd say.
Yeah, interesting. And Claudia, you come from a company with a lot of history, so that's like almost the opposite. And what are your thoughts on having a brand strategy or like a clear vision, in the distance?
Okay, I was thinking about that also, because we have a long trajectory, right? So you cannot change your image one day to another, because you have your customers too, and people also get very used to things, and they just think that when you change just image, the thing inside change, and it's like, no, we are the same, that we are always looking for quality, and that the customer knows about coffee, right? The important thing is coffee, the farmer, and that's the information you need to give. But at the same time, we live in a world that the image is very important, right? And I'm super lucky because my father is a very transforming person. He's always having new ideas, and it's not stagnant in time, So we move with the image, always with responsibility and knowing who we are, but with with the new decade, we can say like that, right? Because we cannot stand in 1989, because then you don't go forward, right? So you need to focus when you are not a new brand, because I'm building a new thing and I can start zero. Just knowing who you are now, but who you be in the past, and just go through this line very respectfully. I don't know if I just
totally.
And it's different, and it's another kind of game, we can say, because branding and packaging is like it's look who you are too, it's like dressing in one time. Just in nowadays, for my grandfather, it was not as important, and is now for young people, for example,
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely that balance of like, what's our history, and what are we, where have we been, where do we want to go, do we want a transformation there, and how do you balance that, and how quickly do you go towards that new place if that's somewhere that you want to be,
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. Yeah. I wonder when you think about your brand and how you sort of what you put out there, the content you put out, the packaging, the design, you know, how much of that is about engaging with your local community versus, you know, building a larger reputation beyond your local community and internationally, or, you know, maybe Gabriella, do you want to start?
Yeah, so for us, we've never talked so much about being local because our focus is the coffee farms, and they are definitely not local. So a large part of our approach is to be kind of free from restraints of that. Maybe rather than call it local, I would say familiar or like approachable, because I think when you talk about local, it's not so much the space or the place. It's more about like how you relate to people. And in that sense, we want to be local. But in terms of how we run our company, I mean, the more coffee we sell, the better, and the more of a difference we can make with our farms. So I hope that we grow even bigger and that we're not so focused on the local. Also, in terms of how we do roasting, we roast here in Hökarängen, which I am in Stockholm, but we also roast in Hamburg. So having worked in beer, I can sort of see a parallel where it's not really necessarily about the roasting, it's about the product. And then the roasting is super important, but it doesn't matter if we roast here or in Hamburg or somewhere else. And in that sense, we're very global and want to be and find that interesting. And then in how I approach our communication, I try to be very inviting because I don't want us to be like a snobby brand. And we want to have a local flavor in that sense, that everyone feels like they can totally just call us if they need anything. We have our cell phone numbers printed on our packaging. So that's also part of it. Don't know if I answered there, but that's my thought.
No, that's good. So you want to feel inclusive.
Yes, that's very important
both to the local audience and, you know, beyond.
Yeah, well, inclusive to anyone. And I think that to me is what being local in a sense is about. Being approachable and that anyone can feel like they can relate to your brand and they can reach out. Like when I do newsletters, I don't send like a corporate newsletter. It's addressed from me and I send it to people. And by now I'm like expecting to get response, which I do. So people reply to it. And it's like I have a few thousand pen pals, which is great.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Super to hear. David?
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the first decisions we made when we started thinking a little bit more seriously about branding was whether we were going to speak in French or in English, because we're based in Paris, but obviously Paris is pretty cosmopolitan, and you can get away with speaking in English as a French company. But we always had this idea in our head that we were going to be very French, so we made the decision to speak in French. And for the first few years, there was a lot of back and forth about that decision because, you know, it's very difficult not to play by the social media metrics sometimes, especially when you have staff running that. And if we had just posted in English, we would have had a lot more engagement across the world. But especially in the beginning, to the French consumer, because that's where we wanted to make a change in the beginning. So I think as we've, you know, gotten a little older as a company, we're starting to speak a little bit more in English, and we're starting to open up who we speak to. But yeah, in the beginning, we definitely made a decision to be local.
Yeah. And have you, because you have a pretty big following, if we're going to talk about that on let's say Instagram, you know, you're quite successful there. And I wonder then, did you see that coming before you turned into more English content, or did you see that coming even when you just applied French to the content?
That was really just French. I mean, we had the advantage of starting, we launched in 2013. So we launched at the right time from an Instagram point of view. I think it's a lot harder to grow your following on Instagram today than it was when we started. So some of that's luck. We also had some team members who were really focused on it and did an amazing job in the beginning. And yeah, we were able to do that just in French. And I mean, I think we also have the advantage that Paris and France travels well. People like coming here. And so we're kind of, you know, everyone in Paris, even like a small bakery can be a little bit global.
Yeah. Welcome back, Claudia. I'm sorry we lost you.
Sorry, guys. Just the light of the roastery just switched off, so I got no internet. I was roasting, and so they stopped. You know, this kind of things happens.
Oh, I hope
Morphe things. Sorry about that, guys. I get super nervous. I'm like, oh, damn it.
You're back.
Sorry. Yes, I'm back.
No, totally fine. We were just talking about, you know, I'd love to get your input as well on how you think about this. Like, do you focus a lot on your your local community, or do you focus globally as well in terms of branding, and what audience are you trying to sort of attract the most?
It's a good question that I never thought about it. I think it's more locally, you know, because you get focus in the people. So we have this also online right shop, but I think it's more locally because, and it's who we are. So I'm not just doing branding because I want to please what people are seeing, you know. It's also my identity. So it's a kind of the two things going on. And sometimes you have also the globally thing, because as I said, branding is who you are too. So if you are watching to another one, imagine to Gabrielle or David, my brand, I want to be proud of it too, you know, just not in terms of who I am with quality of coffee. That's, for me, that's the important part, that we are losing a little bit with all this branding neo going on, you know, because branding it's important, but that doesn't mean sometimes quality. And that's something our generation, it's not very, oh, that is nice, I buy it. Yes, but maybe it's nice outside, but inside it's not good quality, you know? And there are a lot of companies, they just play with that. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question a lot, but I think it goes both of it. But I can say more my community a little bit than globally.
Yeah. We're just showing some of the slides again here of your different sort of applications of your brands.
Mm-hmm.
This is obviously yours, Claudia.
Yes.
Definitely, I 100% agree with that. You know, like, you know, a distinctive branding can sort of take the spotlight away from the product itself.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, does it have to? Like, can you create branding that really sort of puts that, you know, that's the real sort of what you're trying to achieve, right? It's like creating branding that really just showcases your product, so in the way that you want it to, and so that people get the product. But it's tricky, you know, and that's branding and marketing.
Yeah.
I think the thing you said about quality is really interesting, though, because quality is something we've that's always been at the center of how we think about our branding and our brand, both in terms of coffee, but I mean, quality is such a slippery term that it's, you know, it can be difficult sometimes, but it's led us to a lot of decisions that I think have helped what you would say our brand, but that I'm not sure were necessarily the sort of decision you would make if you were looking at something purely from a business perspective. We've done things, you know, a focus on quality and keeping that in mind with our brand has led us to do lots of things the hard way, from like refusing to do anything on vinyl and only do sign painted signs or hand lettered signs, to I can think of there's been so many times when I do think sometimes, and I see it, I actually really see it in your branding, Claudia, that your focus on quality comes through in what you're doing. And you can see it in the images and the applications. And so I think that sense does come through a little bit in your brand. So
thank you.
I'm
We
thinking
are trying
also,
the best.
sorry, I'm just thinking about also like where we are all roasting and producing specialty coffee. We need ways to reach out to the people that haven't yet discovered good coffee. I mean, we are all in a very premium and high quality segment of coffee. And it's sort of us against the giants that have really crappy coffee. And then for me, branding is a way to maybe reach the people that wouldn't necessarily find us anyway. And maybe they're attracted by the bag or they're attracted by the branding, but then they also, that's like a door in to a better coffee experience and getting them to understand. What you're showing now, our happiness blend, is a good example of that. That's like our brew blend, but it's still very, very good coffee, but it's very kind of eye-catching, and a lot of people, they just want it for the packaging, but then that also means that they go, hey, this is really good, and they start reading up on it, and then they become very engaged in a better coffee experience. And I think that's what branding can do for us. In a sense, it's like reaching out to more people than just the coffee nerds, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, how much do you think about trends?
Yeah.
That's like, I'm not going to say it's easy, because I don't think anything is easy when it comes to branding and creating, let's say, packaging design. That's definitely not easy. But how much do you think about branding when you do that? Trends when you do that, because that has a way of like having that packaging reach an audience maybe that was sort of lifted and increase the revenue essentially, because it becomes a thing that people talk about potentially. Or how much are you sort of grounded in like, well, these are our colors, this is what we're going to do, and like this is us, and we're just going to stick with this and just let that run its course type thing, and thinking that is the right approach for you and that will sort of do the trick. David?
That's a big question. Well, I mean, I think, I don't know how Claudia and Gabriella feel about this, but I feel like there's a constant line to walk between there's the famous course of the 20th century, and Coca-Cola never changed its logo, and one of them's a lot more recognizable than the other. And so there's definitely something to be said for consistency and riding out trends. And so I would say for the most part, we try to focus on consistency and building something that's going to be recognizable in the long term. I mean, I think it's easy, especially in the age of Instagram, to like forget how small the amount of people we're reaching actually is in terms of like the larger population. I mean, what Gabriella said really resonates with me in terms of trying to use branding and packaging and different experiences to reach more people. And so I think consistency can really be something that helps you do that. Because if you're changing things all the time, I think people have a harder time remembering you and getting a grasp on who you are. But that doesn't mean never change either. It's a really hard balance to strike.
Yeah.
But at least for me, I know usually I have to keep myself in check to keep things the same, because I'm always wanting to try something new or create something new, and so have to force myself to stay the same sometimes.
Yeah. You see some of your branding here. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I wondered then, like on that same topic, Gabriella, as a new company and with the sort of the approach that you have to your packaging, you have a lot of colors in there. It's pretty playful. Is that something that how much do you think is based off of trends, and how much is like gonna be roughly the same, you know, in 5 or 10 years time? Or are you just like going for the sort of like, we're just gonna swap things out and just be playful like that?
Well, time will tell, but we are a very kind of restless bunch, all of us, and we work very collaboratively. And what's nice about our packaging is that, at first glance, it looks very sort of like chaotic, and there's lots of colors, and it's all different, but it does all follow the same graphics format. So like I have a bag here. So like the logo will always be the same, and like the text will always be the same. We'll always have a QR code that will talk about like what specifically is in this one, which lot of coffee and what you can expect. So even though like these two are in a certain sense, they're super different, but to us, they're not so different. And we think that's such a big part of what's fun with whenever we come up with a new coffee or a new product. We don't have to make it the same. We don't have to follow the format. We can, find a new artist or do a photo, or we can do whatever we feel like in that sense, because it's all on the same grid, if you will. And then I don't know if it's trend, but it probably is, because now, like Claudia said before, what we want is for it to kind of feel good in our stomach and that we can be proud of it. But it's also something that resonates with us. So it's always like, do you like this one or this one, that color or that color? We all talk about it and have a dialogue. But we're all kind of, I'd say, like trend conscious people. So whether we want to or not, it's still going to be kind of on trend in a certain sense. And I look forward to, like, in many, many years, looking back, and maybe we're going to go, that was ugly, but I really don't hope so. I hope we feel like that was cool, and it was very much in the time that it was then, and then that we will be doing something else. And then we're always really, like, at the end, we really agree, and that's what's important. We don't do anything where we don't feel like we love this,
Yeah. That's interesting. And Claudia, what about you and the history that you have with the company? And let's say your packaging, has that changed a lot, or are you sticking with the same?
A lot. Changed a lot. I'm 27 and I just work here since I'm 14, just helping the summers and Christmas and all that kind of stuff. And we changed a lot. And also it's nice because you get people you trust, like our designer, that he told me about when he came here the first time, and he was first helping with the tea company we have, Sans, because I have a roastery and also a tea company, just like David. And he came here, and my father said, like, oh, you can do something for the coffee too, wherever. And he just looked to my father and said, I'm going to be super honest with you, but you need to rebuild. Just not one thing. You need to rebuild all, And he was scared just saying that to a person who has a company for that long time ago. But as you said, you listen and you just think about it. And you don't forget who you are, but you listen. That's something I learned here. Because you listen, because when you are inside a place, you look things, okay, I always run this that way, but when something from outside came, you listen carefully, and just maybe you can see the things in a very different perspective, Or you can say, like, okay, I don't like your perspective, goodbye. That's something that happens too, right? But sometimes it's the other way around. You learn a lot. And of course it changed because, for example, now our color is orange, but it was white a long time ago, and it was a sea, very old. And then we changed the labels, and we just, like, it was Cafes El Magnifico. Now you see Mac, you see like Cafes and Mac, because we have this new like cartoon called Mac. right? It is running with the clock.
Yeah.
So yes, it changed a lot, but not for trend. And I'm super, and I just think David just get to the point that consistency and tendency, that there is a very fine line. You know, you can go with trend, but not because, okay, now I do this because it's trend, and you forget your brand and who you are, and you just rebuild, but with not a good not a good base. You know, you need to rebuild, but with a good base, knowing who you are and what do you do. I don't know if I'm just
absolutely
repeating a lot this, but
no,
that's
I
where
agree. Yeah, I think also you know, you can see trends coming, and I think maybe not so much letting them affect your identity or who you are as a company or a brand, but seeing them as business opportunities, maybe of, you know, adapting your brand or applying your brand in different ways. That can also be, you know, a way to look at it. I wanted to move on to a question about success and what that looks like for you. Like, what is success, you know, when it comes to branding, you know, and a successful brand, what is that, you know? Are you looking for adoption by customers, or are you trying to develop a community of customers, or are you just trying to create awareness? Are you trying to just create something beautiful and something nice, or, you know, or is your brand very related to, you know, revenue and the success of the business from a financial perspective? Let's start with Gabriella.
I mean, hopefully you would have all of those things that you mentioned. We definitely try to, well, like we already talked about, but it's doing stuff that you're proud of yourself is, for us, I think, gonna always be the greatest measure of success. And then that doing things that resonate, where we feel like people want to engage. For me personally, like among other things, I run our social media, and it makes me very happy to see people interact with our products in terms of the packaging. You know, they're selling their apartment and they choose our coffee bags to place in the advert, and you just feel like, okay, you chose your nicest things for this, and you had a lot at stake, and you chose us. That makes me feel very proud. So that's a measure of success. And the people, you know, choose to showcase, okay, this is the fika I'm having today. It's just bigger. It's elevating coffee to something bigger than just, you know, the experience of drinking it. It's a whole set of things where you interact more thanks to the branding, and I really enjoy that.
So you're saying, like, when you see your branding, like your packaging, your products, because of the branding, maybe then placed in various places, and you see that as a measure of, like, you know, measuring success.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's maybe, to me personally, because that's so much a part of my job and what I do here. But that's definitely a part of it. And then also, I would say, I mean, we aren't commercial in the sense that we're like, okay, if it's between two bags, we won't choose the one that sells the best. But we're very secure in that if we choose a bag that we love and that is good, and then it's probably gonna sell, or we hope that it will sell. At least it will sell to the people that are like-minded, that like the same things as us. My father, I made an Instagram post. He absolutely hates our packaging, and I think that's great because it talks very much about how, like, you know, I'd rather have some people hate it and some people absolutely love it, because the in between already exists, you know.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Yeah, so I guess when I think about success in branding's kind of the long-term play, because I think branding definitely speaks to customers and building a community of customers and creating awareness for the product. But I mean, it also speaks internally to our team. It speaks to the kind of people who want to work with us. either as team members or as partners. And so, I feel like success in branding as opposed to other sort of marketing endeavors. I'm kind of fascinated by Cafes El Magnifico as a result of that, because having it been around for that long, and we're a much younger company. And so, yeah, I feel like you don't know if your branding really succeeds until 5 years later, I guess. And you can kind of see awareness, I guess, would be the main target, but that's pretty hard to measure.
Yeah. So you're saying, like, if it sticks, if
Mm-hmm.
it's something
Is
back.
it memorable, and can someone, is it memorable? Does someone remember you? Do they remember a bag of coffee they had, or a place or a retail location that they visited? Yeah.
It's interesting. Claudia, do you have anything you want to add to, like, what success of your brand is like for you?
Thanks for your words, David. You said something that for me is very important. You said awareness, right? For me, it's a very a word that it means a lot to me. And of course, we are talking about branding, but for me, the successful is that you recognize my packaging, but that it means just hardworking. That means good quality. That means that and that means that where your coffee came from, and you have all the information about it, and who is roasting your coffee, where it came from, because when you see Nestlé, right, in a supermarket, it's Nestlé, but it's not Brazil, I don't know, Óleos de Agua from Minas Gerais, producing by Camilo, whatever, right? So that's the important thing to me. Successful is that you go, you see my packaging, and that the team that it's behind, and all the information that they give it to you. Because for me, roasters are those who are connected between the farmers, as the importers are the connectors between the farmers and the roasters. The roasters, we have this role and this work in specialty coffee, to get all the information to the customer from the farmers. That's, for me, that's the important role. And for me, that is successful in my brand.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a few questions from the attendees that I'd love to get into. So let's see if let's try to keep, we have about 50 minutes left, so let's try to keep the answers quite short so we can get through a few of them, if possible. These are like complex questions sometimes. So one question is, how can small, for now, roasters that are at the beginning of their coffee journey stay on trend with bag design when outsourced printing companies have high minimums for packaging? I find this question very relevant and interesting. It's something that I used to work with a lot in my old job. So, like, I know the struggles of this one for sure. David, how do you handle that?
Well, we only launched a completely pre-printed bag, I guess, 6 years into our journey. So my advice would almost be, don't worry about it, and focus on doing other things. Because the reality, I mean, there are some pretty flexible companies out there now, and if you want to shoot me an email, I'll happily pass along our contacts. They can do pretty low minimums, but for a small roaster, it's still going to be a lot. And I would say, unless you've got, I think what Lykke is doing is really interesting, and especially if you have a focus on blending, you can be a little bit more flexible with your minimums. But for the most part, maybe give it a second. I think especially when you're small, people are going to not necessarily expect you to have everything done like a big company. And I think if you can pass through those phases of exploration in the first few years, that can be great. If you're struggling with the minimums and with the cash flow to do it, I would say just hold on a little bit longer. You'll be there in a year or two.
Yeah, that's a good advice. Gabriella, let's check in with you as well, just based on the fact that you are a pretty new company. And
yeah, I was going to say, we've done both in how we chose to handle our bags. So the bags that we really thought were going to be, or the coffees that we thought, these are going to be our big sellers. Those are the ones in the printed bags. But then for the other format, like our very limited singles, where we only do very small amounts, we came up with a solution where, I have a bag here, hold on, where we did spray paint on a bag. So like, because we didn't want to go from this to the standard, sort of, because we felt that they were too far away from each other. So we came up with the idea of spray painting them by hand, which is less work than you would think, actually, because you just put them in a row and then we spray a word, a sentence that has something to do with the coffee. And then instead of using like a sticker, I never really liked the feel of stickers. There's like, even if they have like a paper coating, they're always a little bit plasticky, or even if they're paper, it's like stuck to the bag. So we did a real paper where the color is in the paper before we print, and it's black and white print, and it's just folded on top. So what I want to show with that is basically like, be creative. If you think it's a problem with the menus, look at what there is. Do you even need a bag? Could you put it in something else? Is there a format that's like, that speaks to you but isn't limiting you? Then that's what you should probably go for. So like, there's an advantage to being small. You can do stuff by hand that a big roastery can never do.
Yeah.
It's for that, you know?
Yeah. Creativity and sort of taking advantage of the smallness of something.
Like we can hand pack bags. A lot of bigger roasters won't do that. And in hand packing, there's many more fun formats that you can use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Claudia, I'm going to move on to you with the next question.
Okay.
It's a question about rebranding. So when rebranding a small company, how do you get the few employees within the company on board with the rebranding, especially as a newcomer?
Okay, I think I understand. Okay.
Like if you change your brand, you do a rebrand, and how do you make sure that your employees and your team sort of take that new branding on board and, you know, run with that?
I think just like you explain your team, because for me, that's not only a business. We are a family, you know. It's a familiar business, and it's familiar. Of course, you don't ask everyone opinion, because everyone is different and has an opinion, you know.
Yeah.
And you need to learn with time that you are the head in charge, so you have the last decision. And if you ask everyone's opinion, you know, you get a lot of information and you never get to the point, right? I think you need to always have this kind of make team feeling, you know, like we are all in the same boat. Because for me, it's this Cafes El Magnifico is this: we are all in the same boat, and we want the best for Cafes El Magnifico. Okay, so you create this kind of team energy, you know, and you explain everything. When you take a decision and you said, okay, we are going to change the bags, for example, a very, very small example, just to explain everything. Okay, guys, we're going to change the bags. The new color is orange, and we're going to put MAC. You will see everything is with PLA, so they can put it in the organic bin, wherever you can. You need to say to the customer. When the customer came and explained and said, "Oh, you changed it. I like it most the other one," because it's always like that. Always. Okay. Always there is a complaint. Some of the times they said, and you need to always put your positive. No, but now it's better because you have always the value, of course, but you have the new zipper, and you can put it on the wardrobe in your kitchen, and you can serve more the coffee. And now the material is different, so you can put it in the organic bin. You know, all this kind of because we are learning to each other all the time. For me, that is relationships in my life. So that's the same I wanted to do in my coffee shop. Okay, I don't know.
So maybe
I explain myself.
So maybe communicating essentially to both to team
course.
members and to customers, maybe also, you know, why you made these changes, because
course.
usually, you know, it makes sense then.
Always it's for better, and of course you just learn about everything, and you can make a mistake. Of course, you always do mistakes, of course, but create this energy, you know, be part of it. You are not taking the decision, but you are part of it, you know.
Yeah,
for me that's super important.
Yeah, thank you. Let's jump to another question. Is the future of retail coffee going to thrive through apps or e-shops rather than actual retail shops, like physical
We hope
stores?
not. No, please.
Yeah. David, do you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, sorry, cut out real quick. I think e-shops are definitely going to be a part of pretty much every roaster going forward. But I don't think they're going to replace actual shops. I mean, that said, I think in specialty coffee, we can sometimes get a little bit blinded and think that all of our coffee shops need to look exactly the same. And I mean, to be honest, I started working in coffee in Washington, D.C. in 2005. And to this day, most of the coffee shops I go into look like some version of the coffee shop I worked at back in 2005, whether it's in Paris or in Tokyo or in the US or Scandinavia. And so I think maybe that model time is kind of running out presenting specialty coffee. I don't think like the typical sort of essentially Starbucks drive model is good enough. So one of the things we do, and it really dovetails well with our e-shop, is we have our main retail space is actually a boutique. So you can come in and have a coffee, but there are no chairs. It's really not set up for that. What it is more of a coffee store where you can come and learn about the product and smell it, and all of the experiences are built much more around the idea of a store than a cafe. And that's really drawing on traditions here in France. You know, in Paris, there used to be all of these small little roasteries that dotted the city, and they all died out for the most part. But we brought that back, and it's been really successful, and people really enjoy it, and it's open to a much bigger range of people than maybe a coffee shop. So I would say, no, coffee shops and retail shops definitely aren't dead, but maybe think about what different ways you could present coffee in a retail format, depending on where you are.
Yeah, so like adapting or developing rather that experience that you get in the physical space, maybe, and maybe within that you can include digital solutions.
Absolutely.
But I think that also comes with a certain risk of reducing, like the most immediate thing you think about is like reducing how much contact you have with an actual person when shopping, or like I would like to think that there are ways to like use digital solutions to sort of increase experience.
There are.
And I mean, we see that in places for sure, but I think there's more to come on that.
I mean, there's a lot you can do today with off-the-shelf software and a committed staff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Gabriella?
I mean, we have both. We have our web shop, which is great because we can send the coffee straight to the customers, and we can send our coffee to people that would not be able to visit our shop. We also have a shop, but it's also a restaurant and a cafe and a store space. Now it's summer, so we have like a beer garden, and we don't want to limit ourselves to just being that stereotypical coffee space, because we've done that already, and it's not where we want to spend all of our time. So we created the space from what we want, and that's a little bit of everything. But I also really appreciate it as a marketing tool. It's one of our most important channels, the physical space, where we can have like a fully immersive experience where you can taste the coffee, you can look at the things, you can talk to a person that will talk about the coffee and brew it to perfection. I think, especially since I used to work in beer, what's so interesting about coffee is the fact that you grow, send, roast the coffee, but then such a big part of it is left to the consumer. With a beer, you just make sure that the temperature is good. You crack a cold one, you drink it, But with coffee, it's very much a collab with the customer. And I think we need physical spaces for that to happen. We need to show like this is how we think that you should drink this coffee. This is our best way of brewing it, And whenever people say, when I say I work at Lykke, they all go, "Oh, is that the store? Is that the store by that square?" And I go, "No, it's actually a whole roastery and a whole thing, but but it's very powerful."
Yeah. Claudia, where do you think the retail sort of physical versus digital space?
I love retail. As my father said, we are sellers, Of course, he was a roaster. I'm the person in charge of quality control, but I love retail. And I was 3 months working with closed doors, just doing onlines with my family, doing the close off. And it was stressing, boring, and I love human contact. I think we are human beings, and we need to be in contact to each other. And for me, that's essential in life.
I mean, we've definitely experienced that during the pandemic, haven't we? So it's very clear that, we need to be connected.
And I have online because I think it's a very nice platform where people can get things around the world. Or if you are or you decide to go to the mountain and just live outside, but you love to buy good coffee wherever, that's a good way to do it. So I buy online, so I'm not gonna lie about it, But but I think it's important, this kind of communication with the customer always, and just say that, okay, I like this kind, I want coffee for home, and I want something, I don't know, juicy, just more fruity, and with this kind more of chocolate flavor. And you can say, okay, I have this kind of coffees, you can sell it, you can buy it, whatever, And for me, this communication and dialogue between humans, it's super important, and I love retail. So I hope it's not gonna die, please, guys. But I know it's very hard, and I'm starting a new brand, and I'm gonna do it online, because also it's very hard for young people. I don't know in your country, guys, but just to get new places and pay rents, and just go to the banks and say, okay, I'm young and I want to do this, and just please give me some money for that. And it's very difficult, and rent in capitals also, it's going so high. So I'm lucky to have a shop, and I know I'm lucky about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Claudia. We have one last question. We're about to hit time, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I want to make sure that we include them all. So the question is quite specific. I'd love to learn more about how your brand values were taken into account with your font choice. David, do you want to go quickly on that?
Yeah, I'd love to go quickly on that. So there's 2 phases to this. Initially, like I said, we wanted to be French. So we found a French type designer who had made some typefaces that sort of we felt worked well with our logo type. And then as we got a little older and we had the opportunity to do some things, we actually had our designer and a type designer come in and develop a typeface based on our logo type, which I can't say was the most sort of business effective use of funds in terms of branding, but it was so much fun. to create a typeface and get to use it. And so how did our brand values work with that? I guess the whole way through, we had lots of conversations about how the curve should look, and what different designs, historical designs we were going to draw on. So yeah. But initially we did a little bit simpler.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop it there. I think we've passed the time a bit. So thank you so much, all of you. It was really, really great having you on this panel. Thank you for sharing experiences and thoughts. Look forward to seeing where your companies and brands head to next. So thank you, and thank you again for all attendees. It's been a really great end to our first day of the Coffee Retail Summit. I hope that you're all going to join us tomorrow for the second and final day, and we'll be back here at 10 a.m. Central European Summer Time, same time as today. And in the meantime, don't forget to check out the resource library that's available here on retail.sa.coffee. There's articles, research, and talks curated with coffee retailers in mind. So thank you, everyone, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.